Recording in progress.
That light's still not working, right?
Correct.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 8th Long Hill Township Committee meeting. Megan, would you please read the statement of the presiding officer?
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice that this meeting was electronically sent to the Echo Sentinel and posted on the Township website. The agenda and public handouts for this meeting can be viewed online at www.longhillnj.gov. A public comment period will be held in the order it is listed on the meeting agenda.
Thank you, Megan. Would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Megan, please take roll.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Here.
Committeeman Lavender?
Here.
Committeeman Verleza will not be joining us. Deputy Mayor Ray?
Present.
Mayor Paserchia?
Present. And so everybody knows, the Township Committee decided a couple of meetings ago, if you are speaking and if you are comfortable, you can remove your mask so the people at home can hear you. So, Ordinance 483-21, this is second reading for adoption. Bond ordinance providing for the remediation of the police headquarters in and by the Township of Long Hill in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $461,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $438,000 bonds or notes of the township for financing such appropriation. Jack, did you want to briefly explain?
Sure, Mayor. The key part of this ordinance is that it appropriates the money for the emergency repairs to police headquarters. There's no expectation that bonds or notes will ever have to be issued. The township anticipates receiving FEMA money to pay for those repairs. But this was at the suggestion of the auditor and bond counsel, because if we did it by way of emergency appropriation, those amounts would have to be added to next year's budget, and it would affect the cap. So this is really just a budgetary mechanism to appropriate the money for the emergency repairs to the police station.
Thank you, Jack. Questions or comments from the Township Committee? Hearing none. This is second reading, and as such, we will open up the hearing for comments or questions regarding this ordinance. Again, it's 483-21. So any comments or questions from the public? And Megan, can you check to see if anybody from home?
I don't see anybody trying to raise their hand.
Okay, hearing no questions or comments, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting to the public and look for a motion to adopt ordinance 483-21.
So moved. Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Abstain.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Paserchia?
That's
Oh,
a
sorry.
problem, because we need 4 affirmative votes to pass this. So under the circumstances, I suggest that it be
Carried.
carried until the next meeting.
Is that December
So
22nd?
that we have 4. Bond ordinances require 2/3 supermajority on final adoption.
Understood, Jack. Have we adopted rules where Mr. Veleza can vote by phone?
Yes, at
If
this point
he-
in time, you know, if
So can
if
we-
he can tie in by Zoom, then he could
I
certainly
can
vote.
promote him to a panelist if he wanted to hop on Zoom.
Gotta send the link, though.
So we'll carry this to later in the meeting. I'm not
Okay.
going to hold up the meeting in the immediate sense. Who
So-
can?
So there's a motion pending So let's leave it on the table,
Okay,
and we'll go back to it
and if we have to
later in the
carry it
agenda.
later in the meeting, we'll carry it.
Yes.
How can we contact Vic? Can somebody give him a quick call? Right, as we're discussing this. So, ordinance 484-21, this is also second reading for adoption, regulating fences and other obstructions in the right-of-way and supplementing and amending Chapter 20 of the Township Code entitled Streets and Sidewalks. Jack, can I ask you, if you could, explain what it is that's being done here, and I know we're going to try to add some language.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The intent of this ordinance is to prevent safety hazards and things that interfere with road maintenance and snow plowing. So the existing ordinance provides that no obstructions of any kind shall be included in the right-of-way if they constitute a safety hazard in the opinion of the chief of police. But we've had a recent fence that was installed may present problems with snow plowing, so we added no fences, walls, gates, or similar obstructions, not including mailboxes, shall be closer than 4 feet to the edge of the pavement or curb. Now that's meant to be a general police power ordinance, and I suggest in order to clarify it, and I think this was the intent of the Township Committee, that in the new section that we insert that interfere with road maintenance or plowing, so that the new section would read, no fences, walls, gates, or similar obstructions that interfere with road maintenance or plowing, not including mailboxes, shall be closer than 4 feet to the edge of the pavement or curb. So that would resolve the problem if somebody, it's already existing and doesn't present a safety hazard of any kind. I also would like to point out that in my opinion, it does not interfere with the zoning ordinance. If you just give me 1 second,
Sure.
I can tell you.
And while you're looking that up, I'm assuming, and I know you're not supposed to assume, if a situation with an existing fence or et cetera has not come up before, odds are this ordinance doesn't change that.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. It would only be in those instances where it actually interferes with road maintenance or snow plowing. Now, if you give me
Okay.
1 second, I will.
Okay.
I just want to distinguish it from the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance, at this point in time, provides that all permitted fences shall be situated on a lot in such a manner, that's not applicable. Here's the only section that, could be confused with it. No fence, wall, or hedge shall be permitted to adversely affect visibility at either street or driveway intersections within the space defined as a site triangle. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're also not making it a zoning ordinance, we're making it a general police power ordinance, because it really comes down to safety and road maintenance.
And just to be clear for the public at home and for the public here, what you just read, that's existing language, so we're not changing that.
That's right, and that's, as I say, that's in the zoning ordinance, it's section LU-154.1, paragraph C. So this is amending the
Understood.
existing ordinance that dealt with obstructions in the right-of-way, and as I said, it's meant to solve a problem that the road department's run into, or may run into with
So I'll put it
plowing.
in language that I'll understand. We're not asking, a few hundred families and homeowners out there to go out and tear down their fence.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
I don't think, we can't do this under Title 59, but is there any way we can limit our liability on that? Because the fence we're talking about that's prompted this whole thing is a ticking time bomb. It's inevitable that a plow is gonna hit it, or the snow drift is gonna hit it, it's gonna get knocked down, then we're gonna wanna get reimbursed. I mean, albeit the zoning board let him put it there, but you gotta have some common sense. You can't put this thing on the street, and then we're gonna be on the hook for it, for the road department doing their job.
Well, I
That's my
think,
concern.
I think you put it into the right-of-way at your own risk in any event, even if we didn't have an ordinance. So we can certainly take the position that we're not responsible.
All right.
It's one thing if the truck went off the road and hit it.
Yeah, I get
But
that.
if just in the normal course of plowing, I think, you do it at your own risk if you have something in the right of way.
Well, where that fence is, they're gonna have to actually go into the middle of the road not to hit it. That's the problem. It's
No,
literally on the road.
I understand. So if members of the Township Committee agree with my suggested amendment, I would ask that it be done by motion. And I think since it's just clarifying the ordinance and not making substantive changes, it could still be adopted this evening.
Thank you, Jack. All right, so at this point, I'll turn it to the Township Committee for questions or comments. Seeing none, sorry, so people at home can understand me.
Mayor Pasurcia, are we gonna make that motion before we do the public hearing?
Yes.
Oh, we have to do that before.
Well, so
Yeah,
we do,
yeah,
so we
that's
do the
good.
public
Do the
hearing on the ordinance
amendments.
as amended.
All right, so looking for a motion to approve as amended, and that's ordinance 484-21.
No, it's just a motion to amend at this point in time, then we'll have the public hearing on the ordinance as amended, and then we'll have the
Okay.
vote to adopt as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Pasurcia?
Yes. Okay, at this point, I'll open it up to the public for questions and comments on this ordinance, please. Megan, anybody at home? Yep,
You
no,
wanna
I
come up?
apologize, I didn't see you walking up. And if we could just monitor at home as well. Hi.
Hi. I have serious concerns
Would
about.
you Please state your name
Sure.
and address if you don't mind, for the
Katie
record.
Crichton, 84 Old Forge Road in Millington. I have serious concerns about making these changes to add permanent structures that have been through the permitting process and received approval that can then later, after they've been built, be deemed a safety hazard. I feel that should be part of the permitting process, and I would rather see the police department or DPW added to the permitting process rather than having to tear down things that were already approved by the township.
Well, first of all, most of the ordinance is already in effect. The only change is the within 4 feet for fences and things that present or cause problems to road maintenance or plowing.
We are changing the ordinance to target a single resident that went through the permitting process, received approval. It's a very slippery slope if we start doing this. I mean, it's one person now that's being targeted, but it could be many more people, and it could be applied to anything. You said you assumed it wouldn't be applied to anything else, but that's a very large assumption.
What we're changing doesn't change what already exists, though. I think that's what Jack is saying. I hear what you're saying about
But you're
this
adding
one-
the words fences. You're adding fences, gates, walls, permanent structures that have to follow the permit process.
No, all that's already in there. It's been in there for years.
That's not how I heard it. What?
The only new part is the underlined part.
She doesn't have it in front. What it says here, it says that containing a fence, this is the old stuff, fence,
Right.
hedge, wall, gate, landscaping, shrub, bush, tree, boulders, or other obstructions which obstruct any sidewalk, street, or right of way. So all that stuff, that's already on the books before even this came introduced. I have the same concern you. I don't like legislating for one single property, and I don't disagree with you. But it looks like Jack said, all those things. For example, if you have a wall up now, it's been up for 20 years. They're not going to come to you today and say, "Go move it." Clearly, it hasn't been a problem for 20 years.
But the other thing is, even without an ordinance, I don't think you have the right to put things in the right of way.
No, that's true.
It's an easement, so you can't interfere with an easement.
But to change it and to require one person to have to tear something down doesn't seem.
That's not,
No, we're not requiring to tear it down.
Well, you're opening it up to being deemed a safety hazard in order to I mean, I sat here and listened to you saying this one fence is an issue and it's going to be hit and it's going to be.
That's true. If you go look at it, it's true. I mean, it's literally on the road. My concern has nothing to do with the fence being hit. It's when they come to the town and say, "Oh, the plow knocked my fence down, and we have to pay $1,000 or $2,000 to fix it again," even though they put it right up on the road. Like, go drive by. I don't know if you live in Millington, so you might not go up Main Street, but go drive by. It's very obvious. It's
So-
literally on the road. And it was properly approved. Why, I don't know. I wasn't part of that meeting. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. And I don't think we're not, our point is not to tell them, "Hey, go rip your fence down." At least not I don't think a letter's going out to tell these people that, right?
no.
No. But my thing is, a liability issue is that when it gets knocked down, don't come to us looking for money.
Has the resident been informed that they're a topic of this discussion?
I have no idea.
I think the intent of this ordinance was to anticipate future problems similar problems.
So it cannot be retroactively applied to any existing structure, is that what I'm
Come
hearing?
to Old Forge Road and tell you to take down whatever you have.
I'm not worried about myself, I'm worried about the entire township and what could happen from this.
No, I don't think so, because think about something that was up, say, yesterday, or last winter when they DPW'd the plowing, clearly it wasn't a problem for the last, God knows how many longer they've been plowing for, because it didn't get in the way or anything.
But an existing structure could then tomorrow be deemed a problem because now it's an issue.
No, it would have been deemed a problem ahead of time beforehand, because it's all in the ordinance now.
So this is not, I'm just trying to be clear, this is not going to be an issue. It's not going to come back and impact anybody who has an existing permit and has been approved by the township.
Not that I'm aware of, you can check with legal over there, it's not my area.
I'm not willing to make that carte blanche statement, but I don't think you need permits to put a lot of these things. And you don't have the right, as I say, to put things in the right of way. It's the same as if somebody has an easement across your property. You can't interfere with
Yes,
the
but a
easement.
fence in your, I mean, it should be handled by the easements, not by adding this to the ordinance. If you're talking about the fences, walls, and gates, I do believe those require a permit.
I don't think so, do they? No, I don't think.
Fences do. Fences require permits.
Over a certain height, they do.
Yes.
Over a certain height.
Oh,
But this one would not require, the one we're talking about would not require a
That's
permit.
not it.
But I think it's important to be clear. Nothing that is being changed tonight changes the fact that a resident cannot put something in a township right-of-way. It's already forbidden.
Jack, we're using the term right away. Can you give the technical definition for that?
The right-of-way is, as I say, it's an equivalent to an easement. And it's the right of the public to pass across that right-of-way. Now, most rights-of-way are wider than the paved portion of the street. Almost everybody has a right-of-way that extends into their front yard. Because rights-of-way are usually 50 feet, and I don't know how wide pavement is, 32 feet or whatever. So almost everybody's driveway crosses the right-of-way. But, so, as I say, it's the equivalent of an easement, and the town, once it's there, if the town decided to expand the roadway, the paved portion of the roadway to 50 feet, it has the right to do so.
Or
So-
put a sidewalk in?
Or put a sidewalk in. So if your fence is there, even without this ordinance, if the town decided to put a fence in there, the fence would have to come down. Or
Put a
put a sidewalk in there, the fence would have to come down. So it's really memorializing what already exists.
But if it already exists, if it's already covered in the easement and it's established, why are we adding it to the ordinance?
To make it clear to people in the future that they can't put it so it interferes with snow plowing, basically.
I don't have the easement wording in front of me and where it may already exist, so I can't speak to that, but thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. And Jack, I never ask a question you don't know the answer to, right? That's what
dangerous.
number one. But the right-of-way, as you described it, is that specific to Long Hill, or is that state law?
It's state law, it's true across the country. And, you know, like I said, it's the same as if your neighbor had a driveway easement across your property. You can't put a fence up in that driveway easement because the neighbor has the right to cross it. It's the town, a right-of-way is just the public's easement to use your property.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Meg Crichton at 64 West Rayburn in Millington. I just have a quick clarifying question. So you mentioned that with the easement, you know, that this was not appropriate, but it was quoted from the township in the paper that the homeowner did nothing wrong by putting up this fence. So I'm curious why that was a quote given by the township if it truly is an issue with the easement.
Because in this case, as I understand it, the fence was approved by the Board of Adjustment. But like I said earlier, the main purpose of this ordinance is to prevent this from happening in the future.
So shouldn't that be part of what, I'm not sure, familiar with the Board of Adjustment and what the process is to go through that, but shouldn't it be through that instead of through this process then?
Jack, can I?
Go ahead.
So it wasn't approved by the Board of Adjustment? The homeowner got a zoning permit?
Zoning permit, I'm sorry.
And I believe I'm the one who said the homeowner didn't do anything wrong because you put it in the right-of-way at your own risk.
Right.
So he didn't do anything wrong by putting it there, but he puts it there at his own risk.
So that's already, I guess, been established as,
This is to try to make it clear to people that they shouldn't put a fence within 4 feet of the roadway.
okay, so I do have an issue though with the snow plowing piece specifically. Because, I mean, you never know what snow you're gonna get. If you get 3 inches versus 3 feet, there's a very big difference. 3 inches may not be an issue, 3 feet may be an issue for a fence. So I think that is too broad and leaves it too open as to determine if there's an obstruction or there's an issue with that. You know, to just deem snow, if we get, I don't know, 6 feet of snow one winter and it just keeps piling up and you keep doing that, then that 4 feet may not be enough. And what happens then? Do you go 6 feet, 8 feet?
It's not really an issue, I don't think, with the snow plowing. To me, it's more of an issue, it's almost like do it at your own risk. Because as I explained, is that it's not interfering with the snow plowing. He can still plow the road with no
Right.
problem. But when you know, if you push
gonna damage it.
2 feet of snow as you push 2 inches of snow, if he's throwing 8, 9 inches of snow going out and it knocks down the fence, my position is we shouldn't be paying for it because you assume the risk by putting a fence right where something bad's going to happen to it. That's my only concern. It doesn't get in the way, and I'll tell you that.
Right.
But it's just when they come to us and say, hey, you were plowing the road, and by the way, you knocked down my fence.
So perhaps the language should then read that it is not the township's responsibility to repair said structures,
no problem with that.
rather
I'm happy
than
to do
to
that.
not allow them.
I think that's the case in any event. If you put something in the right-of-way and the plowing, the active plowing damages it, I think you've done it at your own risk. Now, it's another thing if the truck goes off the road and hits the fence and damages
That's
it.
different.
Sure,
Then the town
could you
would be
read the language
responsible.
though again of what you're suggesting?
No fences, walls, gates, or similar obstructions that interfere with road maintenance or plowing shall be closer than 4 feet to the edge of the pavement or curb.
So again, to my point, it is about plowing. And 3 inches of plowing versus 3 feet of plowing is very different. So I think it's too broad. The statement is too broad. Anything that interferes with plowing.
Well, let me, actually,
not be-
you brought up an interesting point. Why couldn't it, instead of saying 4 feet, just say within the township right-of-way? Because I understand what you're saying. Where does it end?
Yeah,
3
because
feet,
it
6
could
feet.
go, yeah, it could
When
continue
by
on.
definition, it really should be the township right-of-way. If you put it in the township right-of-way, it is at your risk,
Yes.
not yours
Yeah,
specifically.
that's
Yes.
As opposed to being a little bit open, well,
Yes.
4 feet may in fact,
I just think that leaves it open to come back in 5 years and say we need more. So if we just put it as the right-of-way, I think that's it.
The 4 feet came from the Public Works manager. He thought that
I
was
understand,
inappropriate.
and there's obviously common sense logic to that. However, to address the point that you brought up, if we specifically said the right-of-way,
Because you're saying that's what is legal anyways, that's what,
The right-of-way could go back 10 feet.
well, therein
And-
lies the challenge.
but that's each individual property, correct? Is that part of the easement? Is that
Right.
defined on the individual property line? Because when I went to the zoning office, I had to get a permit for my fence.
Okay.
There's so far back that you have to put your fence. So I would assume that's due to the right-of-way.
In your front yard?
In my front yard, yes.
I'm not sure what they based that on before this ordinance.
Al suggested, what if we just change it to say road maintenance? So it has nothing to do with plowing, if it's road maintenance in general.
But the issue is more the 4 feet. For me, because
We look on, should we say Rayburn?
Rayburn, yeah. My fence is more than 4 feet, but
I'm sure it is.
I don't, but I'm just saying, I think it's an arbitrary number that you came up with, 4 feet. So if it's part of the easement, part of the right-of-way, part of something in that, I think that makes sense. Otherwise, I think it's taking extra liberty to just put out a number and say,
Well, it wasn't an arbitrary number. It was suggested by the Director of Public Works based on his experience as to how far back he needs in order. It's the snow going off
that's
the road
fine, but if
during
he
the
deems
plowing.
that he needs 10 feet, then he's in my front yard. So I'm just saying, do we just, at what point
Well, that's
does
why
it become the homeowner's? I don't, You can't just take over a homeowner's property.
No,
Because
right.
DPW deems that they need extra space.
No, plus, the town already has the right, or the public already has the right in the right-of-way. We're
And
not
I'm okay
taking
with that,
anything.
the right-of-way.
Right.
If you use that language, the right-of-way, the easement, rather than the 4 feet, that's what I'm saying I have an issue with. Because 4 feet, again, is an arbitrary number, regardless of who came up with it.
When was that original one written with the 4 feet? That'd be years ago, right?
No, the 4 feet is new, that's the new part.
Okay.
Most right-of-ways are more than 4 feet.
Right.
So
Most
what
rights
does
of way are
this-
probably 10 feet.
What does the permit office require when you get a fence?
This will give them guidance, is the
The
intent.
permit office should already have guidance. I had to mark my fence and get it approved through them,
But this is telling the zoning officer that no fence should be closer than 4 feet to the roadway.
but what does it currently tell them? Is there currently no guideline?
That it should not present a safety hazard, is the current guideline. So this brings into it,
Yeah, and I
Maintenance of
think
the
we're,
road.
I think that's cutting right to the point there. What we're trying to do is to make it more definitive than the vague language of a safety hazard. And what we're discussing here, and I think you bring up a valid point, should it be a number that was determined based on the expertise of DPW, perhaps? If we put it in as the right-of-way, I think it's going to be more, I don't know what the word is, restrictive.
It was bigger.
So there's a challenge here,
Well, it'd be ambiguous too, since it's gonna be different for every piece of property.
right, because different roadways have different widths, so some might be 10 feet back, some might be 2 feet back.
right. And to further complicate it, most everyone owns to the center of the road, even though their property description may only say to the edge of the right-of-way.
Mhm. So the purpose of this is to provide guidance to the planning board and to the
To
residents,
the zoning
right?
office.
And the zoning office.
But
before
also
there's
to
your
the
permit.
residents, so they understand what the rule is. So
Yes.
what if we soften the language to say something like, as a point of guidance, no fences or walls, within 4 feet?
Well, then if they do it, there's no recourse.
Yeah.
But I like your suggestion, what you kind of led me to say, within the right-of-way, but the challenge there is going to be, I think it's going to be, it's the road to,
But what's
the
the
road to heck
easement?
is paved with good intentions. In this case, it would make it far more restrictive than 4 feet.
So what's the easement for,
It
Two
differs.
different things.
I'm sorry?
The easement is different than the right-of-way to an extent, 'cause you can have an easement in your backyard for like the power lines or something.
Right.
Or a sewer line or something, so that's different.
I was just saying a right-of-way is the equivalent of an easement. It's just
Yeah.
rights of the public as opposed to a particular,
But is there a standard easement for
No.
property lines in the front yard
No,
from the
no,
road?
no.
But I think
depends
it's
on
not an
the age.
easement, Jack, right? It's
But
not an
it's-
easement, it's
yeah.
equivalent to an easement, but
Right.
it's not, it's a
right-of-way.
right of way, so it's
the
not an
public's
easement.
right to pass up.
Two separate things.
Right.
So-
I understand they're two separate things. I'm asking for a number.
So some
If there's an
there-
easement, like
there's no
4 feet
standard-
of an easement, or if you're on a corner lot, 15 feet.
No,
easement for.
most modern roadways, I believe, are all 50 feet out.
50
But,
feet.
but older roads, some of
So-
them are only 20 feet.
Some are 66 in town.
Yes. So it differs.
But since the right of way is a defined term, can't we just use it? Okay, it's going to be more restrictive, but I tend to agree with the discussion that's been made here. So because it's a defined term and it is going to be different in everybody's home, well, that's whenever you go to the zoning, that's
How
they're,
about,
they're they're going to be able to work that out.
how about if we take out the last new sentence and we insert after which constitute a safety hazard, we put or that interfere with road maintenance or plowing in the existing. So it would read, no person shall obstruct the travelable portion of any street or sidewalk within the limits of the township. Moreover, the owner of any property containing a fence, hedge, wall, gate, landscaping, shrub, bush, tree, boulders, or other obstructions which encroach upon any sidewalk, street, or right-of-way, and which constitute a safety hazard, and this would be new language, or that interfere with road maintenance or plowing, in the opinion of the chief of police, or his designee, or the township code enforcement officer, and we could put, or the public works manager. And then take out the new part, no fences, walls.
Yeah, that would seem to solve the problem, I think, because I think all we're trying to say is kind of, if you build it in the right of way, you're doing it at your own risk.
Right.
And that's,
That's
and that
it.
kind of, as long as everybody knows that up front, that they go into it, and the language is you know, it warns them.
No,
So-
I agree.
And just to clarify one additional point that I think my sister had brought up, and I believe Matthew Dorsey was the one who said that you're not asking people to take them down.
No.
But it does say in here, remove within 10 days of written notice. So it does give you that power.
We always
But
have
that's,
that.
but that's been there.
Agreed, but I'm just saying, you know, so you said, oh, no, that's not what we're doing, we're not going to ask you to remove it, but you do have the power to do that. So I just want to make that clear
Yeah, yes,
on the
that's been in
record,
there. That's
because
true.
what you said implied that that was not the case, so.
Yeah, I mean.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But
I'm
but
disagreeing.
also, to be clear, it already existed. We're not
Understand,
changing it.
but he specifically said that that was not the case, they were not going to ask people to remove it, but you do have that power.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
So,
yes.
I want to
think-
make that.
We have the power, but we don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Understand, just wanted to make sure that we had that.
But I think we would only use it in the case of a safety hazard,
Oh, yeah, if there was a safety hazard, yes.
Yeah.
So,
to tell
okay,
the truth. So-
thank you.
Hey, good job.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
by the
Thank
way, for your comments and suggestions.
Dennis Sandow, Millington. I'm here to offer a little bit of light on the discussion that I listened to on October 27th and again tonight. The zoning ordinance is quite confused. The zoning ordinance talks about setback, it talks about minimum front yard. There's a definition of setback which ties the setback to the street line, which is not defined. The front yard, the minimum front yard is tied to the lot line. And the lot line, of course, is tied to the surveys and deeds for the property. In the older sections of town, the lot line extends to the center of the street because there has never been a correction to formalize the existence of a right-of-way. Even though the town maintains the street and curbs it and paves it and plows it, the street is still a part of a private lot out to the center line. In the newer sections of town, the lot line is at the edge of the right-of-way. Now, nominally, if it has been properly subdivided and the street has been accepted by the town, then the right-of-way line is typically about 10 feet into the front lawn. I say typically, and I emphasize typically, because in downtown Sterling, the lot lines and the right-of-way lines are about 15 feet into the front lawn. And there is one case in town where the right-of-way extends 80 feet into the front lawn, which is a real hassle for the homeowner because measurements that are taken from the property line, i.e. the right-of-way line, push him back measured from 80 feet off the curb. What I would like to do is encourage the planning board to revise all the sections and definitions in the zoning ordinance to reconcile the difference between setback, minimum front yard, lot line, right-of-way line, property line, and a new phrase that showed up here, curb. Now it happens that personally, I like curb as a definition because all the setback rules tend to want to space the house away from the street. And the way you define the street is not from the middle of the street or 10 feet into the front lawn. The way you define a street when you're driving down the street is from the curb. And I would like to change the definitions in the zoning ordinance to give the board's authority to regulate everything from the curb on back, regardless of where the lot line is, or regardless of all the other definitions. And then, when we get that all simplified and straightened out, then this paragraph may or may not belong in the zoning ordinance. It may or may not belong in the police powers ordinance. That can be decided later, but at least the definition will be consistent with the authority that the boards have to regulate. Now, right now, for the lots on Mercer Street, the board does not have authority to regulate this because this fence is in the never-never land between the right-of-way line and the curb. And so when you get a zoning permit to put a fence in that never-never land, what you're really getting is the zoning ordinance doesn't care what you do. It doesn't say it's permitted or not permitted. It just says you're in the never-never land of the right-of-way, and if this were a new house, the board couldn't regulate it. If this were a new house, the board could regulate your front lawn up to the right-of-way line, and after the house is built, you put the fence up, and there's nothing that the board can do about it. So I think that rationalizing the entire issue in the zoning ordinance and then tacking on this enforcement as a safety matter under police powers is the way we should go. Now, if there is no urgency to getting this passed tonight, I would recommend that you simply defer it until we can put a package in front of you that clarifies the whole situation in both the zoning ordinance and the police powers ordinance. And then we will have a uniform base for going forward, and everyone will know what their authorities are and what their responsibilities are.
I don't think that's a bad idea. But to add to the confusion, Dennis,
Say again?
to add to the confusion with respect to rights-of-way, there are cases that hold that even though the modern practice is to only describe people's property line as going to the edge of the right-of-way, that they actually still own to the center of the roadway. And in the case of a street vacation of a street wherever vacated, the half of the roadway would go to each side.
Well,
So
the question...
it was more the practice that changed, because you're right, all the old deeds describe the property as going to the center line of the roadway.
What bothers me is that the ambiguity on what is the front of your property
I agree.
has other implications. For example, street trees. If your property line and your deed shows that you own to the center of the roadway, is there any problem with cutting down trees which are on the property that you are paying taxes for? They're not in the right-of-way. There's a question about lot coverage. If your lot goes to the center of the road, you've got a bigger lot and therefore a lesser lot coverage. And a good surveyor can play games with these various definitions and get you what you want in front of a board without necessarily asking for a variance. And I think, this whole thing starts with the fact that stuff is added to the ordinance and people invent their own definitions as they go along. I don't know where street line came from in the definition of setback, but that's a new one, and street line itself is not defined, except you think it means curb.
To that point, can I complicate life? What is the definition of curb? Is it where there is a Belgian block, or is it where the grass ends?
It's the edge of pavement, the edge of pavement.
Yeah, the intent in this police power ordinance was to say if in areas that have curbs, it would be the curb, but areas that don't have curbs,
Right.
it would be the edge of the right-of-way. But the problem, Dennis, with establishing setbacks is that the town or the county has the right to expand the pavement to the edge of the right-of-way.
Yes, they do.
So you met,
In which case, they'd remove the fence.
I defer to the planning board as to how to deal with that, but.
And we happen to have a building on Valley Road where that should be the case.
So I think we've kind of wandered off
We
course a little
have.
bit in this public hearing, and I mean, Dennis' points are well taken, but the ordinance at hand, I guess that there's the question was, do we hold this in abeyance, wait for the planning board to come back with the appropriate changes, or do we kind of go ahead with it and
Well,
maybe
it
charge
may
the
mean,
pla- the-
if you
the
go
planning
ahead
board?
with it, first of all, I don't sense from the discussions I've heard, I don't sense that there's a sense of urgency, because I don't know that anything is pending that will be changed by this. And so if the planning board can bring something to you in January that represents a total cleanup of this whole situation and a rationalizing of it, it'll make life easier for the boards, and then we can put this in at the same time.
I think the intent of what we were trying to do here was to clarify, not to complicate or to be onerous on homeowners. I think what we heard from the public and from Dennis, for those who don't realize, Dennis is the chair of the planning board, so he's an expert in this area. My suggestion is that we carry this ordinance until we've had, because there's nothing that the proposed change is going to do that's really going to impact anybody.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
So,
I'd
my
like to-
proposal is we table this for now and give the planning board, you said January? I know how planning board schedules work. By February, could that be?
No, well, my intention would be, I mean, we've only got one meeting next week, one more meeting this year, and that's booked. But we can put draft language in front of the board on January 11th, and the board only has to nod, and we'll pass it off to you for your second meeting in January. So it's delayed a little bit, but that always happens at the end of the year.
Yes.
I would like to make one observation for something that Scott said, and that is that this is intended to give guidance to the boards. I think that's what you said.
I think that's what I
And I'd simply like to point out that the way you give guidance to the boards is you adopt a zoning ordinance. And the board is obligated to follow the municipal land use law and the zoning ordinance. Anything else that the board chooses to do is at the discretion of ordinance work that the Township Committee has adopted. Now, there are cases where the Township Committee has granted to the boards the authority to make determinations off the property, to make determinations in the public right-of-way. And this would be another situation where you would specifically give the boards authority to control everything up to the curb, regardless of where the lot line is, even if that might, in some cases, include a portion of the right-of-way. Now, yes, I know Shade Tree is a complication here, and we need to work that out, and maybe we'll work it out at the same time.
That's covered by the Shade Tree Commission statute and ordinance.
Say again?
That trees are covered by the Shade Tree Commission statute and ordinance, that the Shade Tree Commission has exclusive jurisdiction over trees in the rights-of-way. So I don't think we need to worry about it.
Assuming that the right-of-way really legally exists.
All right.
And then there are the private streets, and then there are the
No, look, you've made a very good point, and thank you to the young ladies who also started talking about this. I think the intent of DPW Director Al Gallo and of this committee has been to try to help clarify this. We realize it is clear as mud, so why don't we take your suggestion, there's no urgency here, and address it. And I would add what Brendan had said, it's not just for the guidance of the respective boards, it's also for the guidance of our zoning office. So they would have an idea.
Yes, the zoning office has to be clear in its authority. In this case,
Right.
in this particular case, I'm not sure that the zoning official was the right person to grant this permit.
Oh, yeah, and I do apologize. We have Committeeman Verleza on. This is important, but the vote on the bond ordinance is also important. So thank you for your input. Thank you for your input. We're carrying it until you can get
Why
back
am
to
I
us.
the only person that gets
In
bum's
February.
rush?
In February. Bum rush, we,
Mayor
But thank
Pasurcia,
you.
you made a
And it was off
motion.
topic,
yeah,
Dennis.
so are we gonna revert back to,
So Mayor Pasurcia, you made the motion to table ordinance 484. Do I have a second?
Second?
Well, we're not officially tabling it, we're just, I think we're voting it down because it's not going to get adopted this year, and we can't carry it over till next year anyway.
Okay, can we move to, do we need to, can we
Yeah, let's
hold
take
this in
care
a
of Vic
base?
first.
Because I'd just like to say something, but I'd like to get this done
Yep.
so that Vic can continue.
all right, so here, so it's, or, thank you, by the way, Brendan, thank you. And Vic, if you can hear us, so this is ordinance 483-21. I think days have passed since I first read this, so I'm going to read it again. Bond ordinance providing for the remediation of the police headquarters in and by the Township of Long Hill in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $461,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $438,000 in bonds or notes of the township for financing such appropriation. This ordinance doesn't mean that any bond or note will in fact be issued. It just gives the township the right to do so.
So there was a motion made by Deputy Mayor Ray to be adopted, seconded by Committeeman Lavender, and now I can make the vote.
Yes.
So I'm gonna allow Vic to talk. If you could just unmute yourself, Vic. Okay, so. Yes, we can hear you. So Committeeman Dorsey,
Abstain.
Committeeman Lavender,
Yes.
Committeeman Berleza,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray,
Yes.
Mayor Pasurcia.
Yes.
Thank you. So it passes, it requires a supermajority of 2/3, and we do have that.
Okay, and Vic, thank you very much for joining at late notice. We can go into item number 5, consent agenda resolutions.
I thought we were going back to that.
Yes.
Not to prolong that discussion, as interesting as it was, right? But the if we're going to table this, then we're left with the language that it has to constitute a safety hazard, and the whole point of doing this was a fence that it would be knocked over potentially with snow plowing, and then the town would have to build it back up again. And so we're okay keeping that situation. Whereas if we adopted this, then the amended ordinance, then I think we would be protected against that, and all this discussion wouldn't be for nothing.
Yeah, but I think Jack said we're protected anyway. I mean,
Well, with all due respect for Dennis, this is a complicated question that they're going to be dealing with, and God bless them if they can do it in one meeting, but.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it, yeah.
I mean, the whole area of rights-of-way and streets is very complicated.
Yeah, it is, and so we're still exposed, and we're exposed in the winter, right? This is. I think they said it was snowing outside, just there. So, I would be inclined to move forward with this. It really
We can always
doesn't.
amend it.
Yeah, we can amend it. We can do it, but at least it gives us the protection that Matt talked about during this particular season.
That's my biggest concern. It's basically paying unnecessary insurance claims. That's my biggest concern about this whole thing. And basically, it's almost like they say, it's not buyer beware, but you put something right away, you should be responsible for it. And I don't feel like paying when it undoubtedly is going to get damaged.
Yeah.
I like, if you want to take a vote, we could take a vote. My point is, we've come, how many, 250, how many years is the township?
106.
150, that's right, we did the 150 a couple of years. I was thinking like Seton Hall. Seton Hall is a little bit older. But I have no problem taking a vote, but my opinion is we should, I think I've expressed that we should just carry it. I don't think anything is going to be that dramatically different between now and then, and I get your point. So why not?
Right.
Scott?
I'm for tabling it, especially after all the dialogue.
Okay.
It sends the wrong message to
So
the
it's
public.
2-2 table.
But
So it doesn't.
I would say,
Yes.
if
All right.
there's a way to change that language to say the township is not responsible and will not reimburse for any.
That's all I want them to get.
Access or anything.
I mean, I think that's the whole point. There isn't an easy way to do that. This was the way to do it. We're accomplishing something that we set out to do, that we been talking now for a couple of meetings that we feel was important enough to get it in here, and now we're tabling it. And it doesn't really make any, it doesn't make any difference.
But I thought
We
it's
can't
implied.
absolve ourselves of liability
Right,
for negligence, so that's why I don't think we could pass an ordinance saying the township's not responsible
Yeah.
if it's damaged.
Right.
How about we take a middle ground? We give Dennis a little bit of time to do this. We
That's
can
up to you guys.
You know,
do it the
Fine,
first meeting
however
in
you want.
January.
I'll tell you, I totally agree. I've been on the planning board for a number of years now, and I have a great respect for Dennis, but to think that we're going to get an ordinance language finished in one meeting of the order of the magnitude of complexity that we have here is just
That's not-
it's more
that's
than
not what
wishful
I'm
thinking.
suggesting.
Yeah, it's delusional.
What I'm suggesting is we give them a little bit more time to opine on it.
No, but see, that's the thing. We don't really need to give them the time to do. I mean, they should certainly continue with that endeavour or start it. That's worthwhile. But in the meantime, what we wanted to do here, the reason why we set this whole thing in motion, we're still exposed, and this is a simple fix. It helps us, and we are
Okay.
not paying unnecessary.
I'm gonna
claims.
I'm gonna play lawyer now, and I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I am very
Okay.
smart.
Get back
Seems to me-
back on the phone.
It seems to me that barring negligence by the town, if a fence is damaged or part of a property is damaged, we're not liable if it's in the right of way.
That would be my position.
So my point is, I hear what you're saying. If we're negligent, i.e. the truck went off the road and 20 feet in and damaged it, well, we're probably liable. But it seems to me that we're not going to be liable. We have a case. You put it in the right of way.
Get Vic back.
Yeah.
No.
In fact, yeah.
Yeah, I
we
see
need
you
pay.
texting. Come on, Vic, get back on there. That's cheating.
We need you.
Look, I hear a 2-2 vote, so it fails, right?
Well, if, yes,
All right. No.
the Public Works Director would like to,
Mr. Gallo.
Good evening. So I understand the lady's concerns about the issue. This was brought up because of that one specific lot. And I could tell you, she brought up, 6 feet of snow. When you plow snow and it's that much snow, you're not moving as fast as this. I'm talking about the 6-inch storms, the 5-inch storms, where you're pushing the snow onto people's properties with a pretty good force, especially wet snow. This fence will get damaged the first storm. And the only reason I brought it up, because from experience, the homeowner's gonna come to the town and say, repair my fence. Right? They do it with mailboxes. We do repair the mailboxes. The county repairs the mailboxes on the county roads. This particular fence is gonna be an issue. Just going forward, I felt like the 4 foot was enough of a buffer where somebody opened a car door and it gives us some leeway with pushing snow. When the snow gets 3-4 feet deep, we're out there with machines moving it because you can only push it back so far off the curb. So I just wanted to make that point. I do think Dennis is wrong about the right-of-ways. If it's 80 feet, it's always from the center of the road. So it's not 80 feet from the curb line into the people's property. Always measure from the center of the road. That's what I was taught, and that's what I do to this day, measuring a township tree or other incidents that might come up with public utilities. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
But according to Perry Mason here, right, we actually wouldn't need to, we wouldn't be liable, right, for that fence.
who thought this ordinance would result in an hour discussion?
No, I had concurrence from the township council that if the township is not negligent, and you hurt my feelings there, Brendan. I'm not talking to you for the rest of the meeting.
In any event, it's a 2-2 tie, the ordinance does not pass.
All right, but we will revisit it. I think
Oh, no.
somewhere in there we said we would revisit it. Item number 5, consent agenda, resolutions. Any resolution that the township committee would like to pull for further discussion, abstain, comment on?
Mr. Mayor, I will abstain from 21-311.
Yes, Megan was kind enough to put it in red for me to see that.
Mr. Mayor, if you could go to right under consent agenda as well.
That's right, we're going to add resolution 21-297, rejecting all bids for Main
Nope,
Avenue
no, sorry.
Streetscape Improvement
No,
Project.
not yet.
Not that one?
We're adding 21-314, appointing crossing guard Sharafa, and 21-315, promoting DPW Aripa? No, Arpaia.
You can put 297 in the consent if you wish.
I didn't put it in consent because I figured that the public might want to hear why that was tabled from the last meeting. If we wanted to just put that in there as well, that's fine.
Right, I didn't mean they have to, I just, if they wish, they can.
Okay, so we'll keep 297 out. So I'm looking for a motion to approve 21-302 through 21-314.
312 and resolution 21-314 and 21-315.
Understood, okay.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Paserchia?
Yes. Okay, 21-297, rejecting all bids for Main Avenue Streetscape Improvement Project. Jack, could you just briefly explain why we're doing this? It doesn't mean we're not going to do the project, but there was a bid process. I don't know, maybe
Nancy's
it's more
probably better
Nancy.
qualified to comment.
At the last meeting, we learned that all of the bids that came in for the project were significantly over the amount that we'd budgeted for it. So we decided to ask the Department of Transportation for an extension on the bid, and we had to wait until this meeting to see if they would give the extension, which they did. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine the Streetscape grant with the paving grant that we got for Main Avenue, and with the DOT's permission, which they've already granted, and then rebid everything together in January. So you have to reject all the bids. You had to act on the bids within 45 days? 60 days. And so at this meeting, we have to reject these bids, which will then enable us to go out to bid again in January.
Is that clear?
We got an extension though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so looking for a motion to approve 21-297, rejecting all bids for Main Avenue Streetscape Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Paserchia?
Yes. Okay, liaison reports. Let's start on my left, so Scott.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor Paserchia, for appointing me as the liaison to our social services group, headed by Shane Daly. Had a great conversation with her today. So this came in from Shane. There is a documentary called Like. It's a documentary about the impact of social media on our lives, and highly recommended for parents to watch this, the impact that social media is having on their children. It's hosted by the following alliances: the Watchung Hills Regional High School, Somerville and Somerset Hills High Schools, North Plainfield, other towns. And Nancy, I believe you put the poster for this up on our website. The movie is December 9th at 7 p.m. and it can be accessed virtually.
I put it on Facebook, right? I put it on Facebook.
Put it on our Facebook site, so thanks for doing that. Just wanted to get that out there. Shane's doing a good job on her new responsibilities. May I move over to recreation? Okay. All right, a lot of holiday events underway. Letters to Santa. Those wrap up this Friday, December 10th. And we want to make sure that Santa has enough time to respond to all the letters and get his sleigh packed. It's a red sleigh with a ladder on it, Mr. Ray. And so far, if Vic were here, he would give the statistic that we have responded to 51 letters. Speaking of Santa, We were really pleased with the appearance he made at the Myersville tree lighting this past Sunday. The rec department would like to pass its thanks on to the following people: the Myersville Tree Lighting Committee, Garden State Fireworks, Great Swamp Greenhouses, Pine Valley Tree Service, the Keel Block Elves, Myersville Presbyterian Church, and all the many members of the rec committee. Also to the Long Hill Chamber of Commerce and the Township Committee. I hear you guys make great hot pretzels, so thank you. And especially Mountain Hill Bistro, who really was the linchpin to the whole thing. And finally, special shout outs to the fire companies, the Long Hill First Aid Squad, CERT, our Long Hill Police Department, helping make the event run smoothly and safety. And this year, the Daly family of Myersville lit the tree with Eve Daly on the switch, so that was great. The annual cookie decorating contest is underway. Entry should be in by the 19th of December. Winners will be announced on the 22nd. You can see last year's entry on our website if you want some ideas on how to decorate your cookies. This weekend, the rec committee is recommending you get your holiday decorations up if you're planning to do so, and log into Community Pass to enter the contest. This is going to be a collaborative effort between the Long Hill Chamber of Commerce and the Parks and Recreation Department. So enter by December 12th. Judging starts the week of the 13th. Winners will be announced the week of the 20th. And the winners are going to be visited by a jolly fellow in a red suit. So that's interesting. Check out the rec pages for more details on that. And then finally, Lisa Scanlon anticipates that the lighting project in Canter Park for the tennis courts will start next week. It's going to take about 5 days of, assuming good weather, and 5 business days to complete the projects. So for those who are tennis or basketball players, who've been wishing for extended play during the wintertime, their wishes will come true. So please watch the rec pages for announcements and any restrictions that we might put in place during that construction phase. So that's it for recreation.
Thank you very much, Scott. I think there's a Christmas light contest.
Yeah, I just mentioned that.
You did? Okay, I was
Yeah.
just checking. So Brendan wasn't paying attention, so he said to me, why don't you bring that up, guy?
Okay, yeah.
And just one thing I would like to add, thank you for that excellent report. Special thanks to former Mayor Bruce Marengolo, who has moved to Morristown, but he still is the pretzel king. He brought the grill.
And if Vic were here, he would give you the statistics of 181 pretzels were made.
I think it was more than that.
It's 181.
It's 181?
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
But, so Bruce, if you are watching, I know sometimes you do, thank you from everybody here in Long Hill Township. Brendan.
No liaison report.
Matt Dorsey.
Yes, Millington Fire Department coin toss is Saturday, right? So please detour up through Millington to the four-way stop and donate to the firemen and women that are out there collecting money. It's very important for them. They're still accepting, Sterling is too, right, Firefighter Santa? They're still accepting requests for Firefighter Santa, both fire companies, so please contact them on Facebook, email, the website. It's what, December 18th? 18th. So you hear a lot of sirens on December 18th because Santa Claus is coming to town. Next, DPW, they're finishing up the leaves. Great job with the decorations. I know they came in, I think it was 2 Saturdays ago, and they banged out all the decorations. Main Street, they put some new stuff on. It looks great, so thank you, Al, and your crew. And as I was told, they are ready for the snow. So they're armed and dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Just a couple of things. The FEMA deadline has been extended to January 5th, 2022. I think we're going to get that up on the website tomorrow. I don't know when the second deadline, which had already been extended, was, but it's probably in a week or so.
I thought it was the 5th.
5th, all right, so now it's going to be January 5th. But details will be on the township website. And if the Echoes could kindly, we can send you that information, and you could report it as well. We appreciate that.
And for the record, while we're talking about quotes for the newspapers, it was 348 pretzels.
Well,
can see your
All right.
feverishly writing.
I stand corrected. I don't want to have any misinformation.
I speak, I was wrong, so what Committeeman Lavender just said, Mr. Mayor, you are in fact correct. That's what I heard.
You may have heard that. I didn't say it that way, though.
And how many did you make, Guy?
Many. All right, the volunteer dinner, the Long Hill Volunteer Dinner was last evening. We had, I don't know if it's a record crowd, but it was great to see everybody there again. And I'm going to announce the people who received Volunteer of the Year Award or Lifetime Awards. In fact, we're blessed tonight. I see one of our awardees in the audience who is sinking down into his chair.
See what you did, Guy?
Yeah, I know. The honorees last evening for Volunteer of the Year Award, or Volunteers of the Year Award, Michael Hoffman, Kevin Dempsey, and a team award for the First Aid Squad. And since Michael's really embarrassed, I'm going to say, so he effectively received 2 awards. The First Aid Squad received one for the unbelievable job they do, or did and do year after year. And then we had 2 lifetime winners, Bob Hedden from the Sterling Fire Company, and Susan Jeans, who has chaired the Shade Tree Commission for many years. In fact, she's been a member of the Shade Tree Commission. I believe she helped start it back in 1985.
She did.
So we're coming up on 37 years. So Susan, if you are watching, thank you. And that's it. So, and this is 2 meetings in a row. I have not forgotten, Nancy. We'll do the administrator report right now.
Thank you, Mayor. Parking passes for the train stations went on sale on Monday, and as of today, we have sold 44 in Gillette out of 140, 3 in Sterling out of 65, and only 1 in Millington out of 150. So because we have sold so few, as we have discussed previously, we're thinking of continuing to offer daily passes at all the stations, but instead of asking people to do it ahead of time online, because that's, I guess, proven to be a little bit difficult, we were considering looking into tags that you hang on your windshield. That way people could buy them in advance. They could buy 1, they could buy 5 or 10, hold on to them, and have them when they need them. The ones that we looked at, the user writes the date on the tag, so they're not reusable. And you know, we didn't really look into cost of that or anything. I'm sure it's fairly minimal, but if you're interested in offering daily passes, I mean, the spaces are open as of now anyway. You know, it's a really small percentage of the total number of train, like we usually sell out for at least a couple of them, or we used to pre-pandemic. So if you're interested in us offering the daily passes in this way, or at least looking into it, we could talk about it at the next meeting, so that the spaces aren't just going empty for somebody who just wants to at last minute, you know, take a ride to the city or whatever. Okay?
Yep. Do we have an idea of what percentage of season passes were sold for each of the stations?
Well, Nancy just said it was, what, 40?
44 out of 140. So altogether, you want to go station by station? So
Yes.
44 out of 140 for Gillette. So
Okay.
that is less than half. 3 out of 65 for Sterling, so that's 0.5%.
Okay.
And 1 out of 150 for Millington,
Okay.
so that's, you know, what, 0.1?
All right, well, the Marx Brothers over here are having a good time.
All right, I want to update on Cross Hill Road. The contractor started this week, and he had to start at the Basking Ridge side and is working his way up the hill. Residents are being notified as the work progresses towards their houses. The engineer noted that the road will be accessible during non-working hours, but closed while they are working. So it should take about 4 weeks, but obviously it depends on weather, and it depends on other factors such as field conditions, things they find in the field. So hopefully that will be done, you know, in December. Hopefully it'll be able to be done in December. Canter Field Lights, as Committeeman Lavender mentioned, work will start next week, and in fact, the equipment was actually dropped off today. So we're pretty sure it will start next week. And as Committeeman Dorsey mentioned, holiday lights are up. I think they look great. Thank you to DPW for putting them up. We did include the schoolhouse this year and the Millington Cafe at their request. We're having some lighting issues on Main Avenue, but DPW is looking into alternatives so that the batteries don't keep going out. And reassessment value letters are going out on Friday. If residents have questions or want to discuss the value, their new value, they need to call the appraisal company, and the instructions for that are contained in the letters that will be going out. And finally, the bus started yesterday. We had no takers for Monday, so yesterday was the first day. There have only been a few riders so far, but it is new, and I expect ridership will increase as time goes on. And the instructions for how residents can book a ride are on our website, on Facebook, and on LHTV. And we've expanded the days and the locations where they'll be able to get rides to.
Have we put a sign up right at the senior center with the instruction, just because some people
Yes.
use the internet or
So there are
watch local TV?
there's signs up at both bulletin boards here. There's a sign at the senior center. There is a sign at the library and at Lounsbury.
Would it be, I don't know, posting them at the churches too? I don't know if they'll let us do that. I'm sure they will, but
Yeah, I think we could do that as well. We could ask them. I'm sure that'd be fine.
all right. Yeah, I figure the more people know, the easier they can find it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
And I just wanted to give special thanks to Administrator Nancy Malul. You've worked on this for quite some time, so it's great to see it come to fruition. Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, so next on your dance card, item number 8, fire truck. 21-313, resolution of intent to award a contract for the purchase of an aerial fire truck for the Millington Volunteer Fire Company under a national cooperative purchasing agreement. If I could turn it over to you, Committeeman Ray?
Yep.
But Deputy Mayor Ray, I'm sorry.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mayor. And if you indulge me here, the committee allocated $1.2 million to the purchase of a fire truck in this year's budget. It was going to be it would be over a period of 6 years, with $200,000 being 10 years. Yeah, it would be spread. The payments would be spread over that time, and so it's a big ticket item. And I'm actually going to ask for more than the 1.2, and so I think it deserves a little bit of explanation for the committee and also the residents of the township. So just give a little bit of background as to what we've done here. As a fire company, we formed a new truck committee in I think around January this year. Once we knew that the committee would be authorising the truck. The members are basically, it was the officer group within the within the fire company. Chief White is on the phone, I believe, and we have 3 other members of the committee here in the audience. But basically, an extremely experienced group made up the new truck committee. So this year we've been meeting weekly and sometimes twice weekly over the course of the months, and our objective was to design a customised ladder truck to meet the needs of Long Hill Township. And also the surrounding areas, because we are called out on mutual aid, and importantly, this is a 20 to 30 year purchase that we are contemplating here, and so there was a good deal of additional thought had to go into the discussions around it, and I think importantly, for everyone. We wanted to do it without any unnecessary expense related to cosmetic features of the truck or undue levels of comfort within the cab, and any inclusion of any kind of nice to haves. What people refer to as toys. So we really looked at things very carefully, and I can say with my hand on my heart that our deliberations have always walked the line between what we consider to be necessities and always with an eye to expense to the taxpayers. So very briefly on the process that we used, we met with a number of vendors really to educate ourselves as to what the modern day features are being offered on the modern day fire trucks. We then came up with our own equipment and specifications for our truck, and we provided these to a short list of vendors, of four vendors that we had particularly impressed us. Ultimately, we chose a manufacturer by the name of Rosenbauer, and our choice was based on a number of factors. The ability to meet our specifications was certainly uppermost, but there also was their responsiveness, the warranties, their after-sales service, which is very important, and also the reputation that the company has. And this was based on a number of discussions that we had with other fire departments over the course of time. So just to give you an idea of the truck that we have designed, I mean, the important elements of the truck are its length is no longer than 41 feet. I think it's 40.4 inches. And that's important because if it was any bigger, we would have to build onto the firehouse, and that was something that it wasn't practical. The ladder length, we wanted it to be 109 feet, and that's important just because we are contemplating the changes to the township and our ability to effectively respond. So as we all know, and it's given away by the name, Long Hill, we have a lot of hills, and it's important that a truck is able to set up on any grade in the town, and so we're not having to worry about truck placement if in the event of a fire, and so that was another important part. The other feature here was it had to be a tandem axle truck, and we wanted to do that in order to move away from any weight considerations that we might have. We're carrying 500 gallons of water, and so plus equipment plus people. So the other one of the other things that we decided to do was we really wanted it to be as much as possible a kind of plug and play. Whenever we show up on scene, we wanted to be able to get into action immediately without any undue time taken over things that could be automated. And so we looked at automation in the truck, and a lot of trucks now are very much computerized, and so that was a good thing. The one thing that we incorporated into this truck was a system, an automatic pumping system called the SAM system, and that really allows the operator of the truck to do different things on the fire ground rather than being tied to the pump panel. And so, especially in day calls, whenever there might be a lighter crew, that gives you an extra half person at least to go through other to perform other duties on the fire scene. So the next phase for us is to visit the factory in Minneapolis, and essentially we'll spend a full day touring the factory. There we'll look at other builds from all over the country and that Rosenbauer are putting together. And the second day we'll essentially sit down with the engineering group, and we'll go through the full specification of the truck, and essentially that's basically looking at every nut and bolt in the truck and making sure that that's the way that we want it. So that's the next phase, and that'll happen in January. So As I said, we're asking for some more money than was budgeted. The figure I would like to ask for an additional $200,000. The truck that we spec'd from Rosenbauer is around 1.3 million. The additional $100,000 is really to give us the ability to potentially make changes as when we visit the factory, and so that we're not tied to the particular spec that we have right now. If we see something that is really something is a feature that we'd like to have, and we also would like to outfit the. We'd also like to equip the truck where possible. We'll use what we have right now on our existing truck, but there are changes that we're looking to make here, and one is that we want to eliminate gas from the truck, and we want to go to all battery operated tools and equipment, and so that would mean the purchase of new equipment, and also we'd like to carry as much large diameter hose on the truck as possible, and right now the standard is around 1,000 feet, but because of the size of the truck, we want to make sure that if we want to look into some new types of hose that can pack a little bit tighter, and that would give us the ability to pack as much hose as possible without having to sacrifice on space that we would have in the cabinets, which is scarce here. And so just to let you know, as far as the additional money that that we're requesting, whenever we went through the budget, the capital budget for the next few years, we'd actually requested $70,000 we would be requesting $70,000 in capital requests, and by approving the additional 200,000, we would eliminate that 70,000 over the course of the next couple of years from our capital requests, and so what I'd like to do is, if there are, I'm sure there are questions, I'd like to call the members of the truck committee up to the podium, and if there are any questions that the committee has, we can pose them to the experts who are in the audience here.
Okay, so while they're coming to the microphone, I see they're not jumping at this opportunity, but I'll ask the one question which I know the answer to, but how old is the current ladder truck?
The current ladder truck will be 30 years old this year.
Right.
Well, in 2022.
And I don't know how to phrase it, the life expectancy of a ladder truck is what?
I mean, really, you should be thinking about changing it around 20 years.
Right, so we've been thinking about this, we've been considering it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that truck useful to someone else as we dispose of it?
I think in the past, we've taken these, our towns have taken their trucks and donated them to other states. That's something that we could do. I believe there's some kind of resale, although it's not very much, for these trucks in other countries, and there are parties who will take them and export them. But again, there's the resale value. Really, at this point, is probably in the tens of thousands.
Does Rosenbauer take a trade-in?
They've said no, essentially. If it was, it would be grudging, and I think they said we took a trade and we sold it for scrap, and so they got $10,000 for it, and that was because of the ladder. So it's probably not the best option for us, and certainly Rosenbauer are not really willing to do it.
Good.
Al can speak to this better than I, but Sterling tried to sell a truck on eBay several years ago. It was unsuccessful, and they donated it to a small volunteer fire company in Tennessee. And one of the members, or two of the members, drove up from Tennessee and I've never seen anyone so happy. They came to the dinner.
Deputy
dance
Mayor and Mayor, I
so-
apologize. Would you like me to promote Patrick White so he could speak? He's
please.
on Zoom.
Yeah,
Yes, please. And Brendan, would you kindly introduce, I mean, we
absolutely.
know who they are, but
Yeah.
if you could introduce who's going to be speaking.
Yeah, sure. So, Patrick White is our chief, is Millington's chief, and he has been over the past 3 years. So we welcome him. At the podium, we have Patrick Golden, who was experienced. I think Patrick was the very first junior in Long Hill Township, and so he has a wealth of experience as an officer, as a chief on a number of occasions in Millington, and he is currently our training officer. Next to Patrick, we have someone who needs no introduction, our captain and volunteer of the year, Mike Hoffman. Again, Mike has been a firefighter in Millington for 25 years. So, a wealth of experience. In fact, Truck 14, our current ladder truck, was brand new whenever Mike joined. So that's how long he's been around. And and next to Mike is Alex Abella, who is our lieutenant. And Alex joined the department as a junior, and he's been with us ever since. Went through Firefighter 1 in Morris County Academy. And the one thing I'll just say about the balance of the committee, we have kind of the experience of the older members, but then also on the committee we have our two lieutenants, Alex being here and the other Chris DiBiase, and they really are the kind of the future of the department. And so they'll be standing here in 25 years telling us about the next fire truck. But so it's been a really good makeup of the committee, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone everybody who's been on it for their dedication and just the kind of collegiate work that we've managed to do together. So
And thank you for such detailed explanation, and you are humble, so I will say it for you. Brendan Ray is a longtime member of the Millington Fire Company and currently serves as president. Questions? We have everyone here from the Township Committee. Comments? Go ahead. Scott?
Reiterate delivery time on the unit from point of order.
So this is Patrick Golden. So currently the factory is running some 14 to 16 months out. Wow. So if we actually place the order in January, we would expect an early 2023 delivery.
What are the terms of the transaction? Is it 50-50 or?
Well, it's going to be purchased through the consortium, and I think there's going to be some structured payments that are associated with that. So this, excuse me,
Finance or lease?
I think it's a lease.
It's at least purchase.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and then is there training that has to be included in this? So is training part of the cost, and how much training do you get with this?
Correct. So there'll be 3 days of actual on-site training. So you'll have a factory representative there for 3 full days of training for the company to be able to bring the truck through all of its various evolutions.
And is this the one with the screens on it to control pressure and stuff like that, or?
Same system. Correct. So one of the issues going forward with volunteers is the amount of time and expertise that you can be able to package into a volunteer. In the old days, pump operators were people that specialized in understanding the physics of pumps and water, friction loss in hoses, and all these things were memorized. You know, I went to school for, you know, tens, hundreds of hours on the pump operating side just to be able to operate a traditional pump like there are today. It's not practical in the volunteer world to expect people to be able to put that much time and effort into what we would call current or modern volunteerism. So whatever we can use in the way of technology to be able to improve that or cut the expertise down, allow the computerization to be able to make judgments based on pressures, water volume, things like that, actually then reduces the amount of expertise and makes more volunteers possible to be able to operate these vehicles. So that occurs not only on the pump side, but then also occurs on the ladder setup and ladder use side as well.
So the ladder side has some intelligent electronics to help with the operation there. Is there any kind of maintenance plan available from the manufacturer to, you know, in terms of software upgrades and things like that? I would imagine something like this has got a pretty sophisticated computer in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much the computer, but that software that is in the computer. So there are updates. I believe we are 2-year warranty with Rosenbauer right now. So most of the other vendors we looked at were just simply a 1-year warranty. You know, after that, you know, the town is essentially on the hook for, you know, any of the, you know, the maintenance.
I guess the question I'm asking there is there an extended warranty available for year-to-year maintenance for software upgrades and other things like that? Just a question.
So I think there's a little bit difference between just the warranty side, and there are extended warranties which we can buy. Although just like warranties on other things, you know, we usually need the money in the 20th year. We don't necessarily need the money in the second and third year. But the upgrades as they come along from these different systems are simply purchasable. So if we see that we would like to be able to upgrade it, then it may, depending on the cost, become you know, a capital request in the future.
Oh, I see. So perhaps some of these controls are unpluggable and new modules plug in? Is that?
They're correct. I mean, just, it's like any other software version. It's no different. So depending on what the terms are that we purchase the SAM system with, or with the rig, we may get some upgrades that come along with that automatically. Still one of those items that we are actually negotiating with the manufacturer or the providers for those specific projects.
And this team's doing the negotiation?
That's correct. Yeah, we are still finalizing everything and unwrapping. You know, we've spent the best part of a year trying to get the large structure of what we think meets the town's needs and the fire company's needs. And now our goal is through the factory visit and through continued work with the representative to narrow down all these more finite items. So all these are essentially still on the table.
And do we take ownership when it leaves the factory doors or when it arrives here in town?
When it arrives.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Upon
Yeah.
delivery.
Unsure of that, yeah.
On delivery?
Mhm.
So when it gets here,
When
we
it gets here, yeah.
Okay, yeah, good. Sorry for all the questions.
Yeah, no, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
But the warranties, do different components have different warranties? I'm clearly not putting a ton of miles on it, like you would a car, but I mean, just like maybe the electronics have a different warranty than the engine or the pump or something like that, or the hydraulics?
I'm not sure,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Brendan, you could speak to that. 'Cause
Yeah.
you had worked on that side of it.
Yeah, they do, Matt. You know, the ladder has obviously a much longer warranty, and then you have the actual frame itself is also different from some of the electronics.
Okay.
And then the engine itself actually comes from another manufacturer, so that has its set of warranties. But the one thing that kind of that we like about Rosenbauer is that they really kind of recommend the manufacturers who have the longest and best warranties, and we've talked a little bit, or I have talked a little bit about the salesperson that we're dealing with.
Okay, now I know the length of the truck, but what's the length of the ladder fully expanded compared to the one you have now? If you know.
So we do know. So the current ladder that we have now is a 75 foot ladder, and so it has 3 pieces to it, what we call 3 flies. So based on the proposed new housing, which will be in town up to 3 stories, our ladder gets a little bit short, depending on where you are on that building. So the new truck will be what we call a 4-fly, 109 foot total reach on that. So allows us more versatility. In many cases, we can't be exactly what we call at the address, which is in the front of the building. And so now we can be off of the address slightly and still be able to effectuate whatever operation we would need with that ladder. Could be ventilation, it could be rescue, it could be water application, but all of those are extended with with that additional reach.
And they need whoever the drivers are, do they need to be qualified to drive on this as opposed to the other trucks or not?
Correct. All of our drivers are individually qualified on each vehicle. So to be able to drive a vehicle, you have to be checked out. You have to pass essentially a set of requirements. So not only operation, but maneuverability and fireground tactics for each of those vehicles, because they each have their own specific fireground tactics.
Now, the people that they're qualified to drive the current ladder, they grandfather in, or who does the training? Do you guys do it, the academy, the manufacturer? So
as Scott pointed out, we're going to start out with some factory training. Okay, so that's going to be 24 hours of intensive training to a core group. And as usually happens in all volunteer fire companies, then the trained become the trainers from there. So I'm the training officer. I would take responsibility then for turning around and training people that weren't trained in the initial tranche, or some new member that comes in after that initial training. So nobody is grandfathered in. There are some basic skills that you transfer from one truck to another. So the principles are no different, but the operations of the new truck will be completely different. All the controls will be different, where everything is placed in the cab, or out in the back on the pedestal, where you stand to operate the ladder, or at the pump panel. All these things are going to be brand new. So there absolutely is a learning curve here.
Okay, and speaking to Chief White last night, what he did tell me was that there's some new device on the hose nozzle. So if you lose communication with whoever's working the pump or at the truck, there's some kind of electronics on there we can still control the output on the hose or something?
That it allows the nozzle team, so this is the team that's inside of a fire building, okay, to do certain things. So what they can do is they can actually call for water electronically, so on the nozzle itself. So instead of having someone at a pump panel having to communicate by radio, hoping that your communication gets to that person and they can hear it, that you can select at the nozzle itself. You could actually select to be able to turn the water on from the pump. So you literally can control the pump from inside of the fire building. That is the absolute newest of technology right now. You can then also increase or decrease the pressure. So the pumps are set to certain preset pressures based on what the length of the hose is, but either based on your ability to be able to control that pressure inside the building, or to be able to get greater penetration, you can then adjust what those pressures are. Those hoses will also tell you if you lose water supply, which is super critical to firemen from a safety standpoint. So, let's say that we have a supply line that goes to this new truck. This new truck loses that supply line. The hydrant fails, the hose breaks, whatever it happens to be. You have a very limited water supply to be able to safely be able to remove your firefighters from the interior of the building. So these newest smart nozzles work then with the smart technology, the SAM technology, to become a complete integration. So it helps with control, but in the greatest sense, it really helps with safety for our firefighters.
And my last question, just for public knowledge, the battery-operated equipment on there, the saws, things like that, they charge while the truck is obviously parked in the garage, right?
Correct.
You plug in and they charge up? Okay.
And then they will also charge on scene as well. So with multiple batteries, we can pull those batteries out, use fresh batteries, and then plug in batteries if there's some extended use. But most of these are short use. If I'm sure all of you can relate that if you have a chainsaw at home and you can't get the chainsaw to start, we use saws all the time, for cutting operations, either on the roof or for forcible entry somewhere. There's no combustion anymore. It's simply a pull the trigger, and it is just like an electric car. There is instant energy there. So it's meant to eliminate any possible problem and get the quickest, fastest approach to these maneuvers we do.
Thank you.
So, last question for me. In terms of your run and maintain expenses, do you anticipate that goes up or down, and include with that insurance?
Insurance, I really couldn't speak to. Like with every new thing in the beginning, assuming, once we get out of warranty, the level of maintenance is super low. And so what you only have is over time that continues to, things start to wear down, things start to break down. We've had this current experience with, with our current ladder. Every fire truck goes through the same thing. You have to understand that every year, every one of these vehicles need to get tested. So they get tested for their, for their pumps. All of the hose gets tested. Every ladder gets tested. We just had a ladder. We've had it for 30 years, and just this past year, that ladder failed. It's a portable ladder, but failed for the first time. Failed the same test that it has had the same test for every year for 30 years. So literally over time, through use, these things start to wear down and break down. And so it's those extended years that you would really expect, a mounting expense. And that's why there's this kind of convergent point where as it gets older and older and more expensive to maintain, that it makes sense to be able to purchase or replace.
Right, so what you're saying is this is a really good time to upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, we are really at the end of the service life. One of the reasons why our vehicle is literally almost valueless, on the marketplace is that the amount of work that would need to get done to that vehicle to NFPA certify it, and then generally those refurbished vehicles are sent down to South America. That's the largest place. But the amount of work that they would have to do and the liability associated with making those things NFPA compliant, render the trucks nearly valueless.
So it sounds like a big number too, but we're financing it, right? It's a lease to own, right?
Yes.
And that was over how many years?
10 years, right, Nancy?
10 years.
Yeah, but
So compared to the ongoing expense, this sounds like a pretty good thing to do right now.
I mean, it's like your own car at home.
Yeah.
Part by part, you're just going to replace it, and once you start, we haven't had that many big parts to go, but once you start replacing ladder sections, once you start replacing hydraulic pumps and things like that, you start to get into these six-figure things that just don't make any sense for municipalities to start chasing it.
I'm good.
Thank you, and mine's more a comment than a question, and Brendan, thank you for such detail thank you for everything, answering the questions of the committee. Even though the headline number is that additional $200,000 to point, it's really $70,000 less than that because it would kind of take away from the capital requests over the next couple of years. Plus the maintenance, the known maintenance, we know what it's cost over the last few years. So really, you're here asking for maybe $100,000 flexibility on what you see at.
But we're getting value back from that.
Right.
Because
And that doesn't
we're
even
making it
count
easier
a
to
lot
get
of
volunteers to work this, because
You know, and
a lot of
we
the
haven't
training
even
on
hit
this
that,
stuff.
you know,
Yeah.
that really expensive one where, you know, the ladder itself fails. And my guess is, not being a fireman, a ladder truck without a ladder is a truck. Come on, that deserves a little bit of a laugh. I know it's 10:15.
The insight of a non-firefighter.
Yeah,
is
exactly,
incredible.
yeah.
It's a taxi cab for, it's a red
Remember,
taxi
Holiday
cab
Inn
for Santa
Express.
Claus is what it is.
All right, look, at this point, what do we do? I know it's the intent to purchase. Do we?
There's a resolution following
Okay.
the discussion item.
Right, and then the
Jack, would there be any sort of amendment to the proposed resolution, including the additional $200,000?
well, right now it's 1.3 million, and
Right.
and it would be, what I would request is 1.4, based on the
So
discussion.
yeah, so the resolution should be amended accordingly.
To say 1.5?
The 1.4.
I'm sorry, 1.4.
4.
Okay, I will make that change.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion with the change that Megan just referenced. So 21-313.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Abstain.
Mayor Paserchia?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On behalf of the fire
I
company.
apologize. That's right. I should thank you guys for coming tonight. I know it's late, but I think it's important, so I appreciate it.
It's, yep, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate the support.
And for those who are watching at home, Mike Hoffman is the gentleman in the middle. For those here, if you'd like his autograph, he'll be outside for the next 10, 20 minutes or so.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
That's Chief White that you could hear.
Oh, Chief White, I apologize. Chief White, thank you.
No, thank you, appreciate it.
All right, so on to the next agenda item. It's item number 9. Oh, geez, sorry. Old or new business? None?
None.
All right, none there. The next item, as Grand High Exalted Ruler, known as Mayor, I'm going to make a mayoral appointment. Let's see how many times I can say mayor in the same sentence. Christine Merrill, who has a wealth of experience, has kindly volunteered to serve on the Recreation Advisory Committee with a 5-year term, which will expire December 31st, 2026. Okay, announcements. We don't, come on. Well, I guess we went over a lot of the Christmas announcements or holiday announcements. Anything that comes to mind? I hate, because one announcement I could say is we don't have another Wednesday meeting in the month of December. We will only have a December 30th meeting.
It's the 22nd, which is a Wednesday.
Oh, it is the
It is
22nd.
a 20, yeah,
What time is
This is
that,
this is the penultimate though.
at 8:30.
AM?
Yes.
Okay.
8:30 a.m., December 22nd is our last meeting.
December. Brendan was trying to impress me with big words that he doesn't understand the meaning of. So the meeting is what date?
Wednesday, December 22nd at 8:30 a.m.
8:30 a.m. Okay. Vic, what are the odds Vic will be awake?
You get one phone again.
All right, so that's it. I regret there's no other announcements. All right, I guess the main ones Scott had already taken care of. All right, at this point, I'd like to open up the meeting to the public, and I do thank everybody who's here from the public for their patience. I know this is later than usual, so please, the mic is yours.
Good evening. My name is Carol Press. Before I start with my comments, I thought we used to have 2 open sessions. First one was just to discuss items on the agenda, and then there would be a second one in which you could speak to anything. I would have liked to have talked about this before you voted on it, but here goes. I'm glad to see that we are doing something to remedy Long Hill TV. When TV first became available to homes in the 1950s, programs were not broadcast for most of the day. And when one turned on the TV, a test pattern came on. Nice circle. We used the test pattern to tune the television in. And you did this with these little dials, and the TV was nice and clear. Well, during the last several months, Long Hill TV has made me feel like I'm in a Back to the Future episode, back to 1950. Because I turn it on, there's no broadcasting. It's sort of a test pattern that says there's no broadcasting, but you still can't tune it in because it's still blurry. When I spoke to the Township Committee meeting about this a while back, I was informed that the reason for this not clarity on the television is that we had purchased HD TV equipment and we don't have the ability to broadcast in HD TV, so hence there we are. In the past, let me see, where was I? Also, there's currently, basically, the programming guide is not anywhere near as good as it was. And in the past, it was pretty much always up to date. I was hoping this contract will guarantee that the program, well, 2 things. Number one, that the contract will correct the problem, the fact that the TV's blurry still. I have 1 TV, I have 5 TVs in the house, 1, I can actually read what it says. And I don't know, that's my first question. Is part of this contract clearing up our televisions?
I don't know, Nancy or Scott. Scott's our expert on,
So
Cat. Scott, if I could ask you to remove so people can understand.
So the blurriness that you're referring to was the down conversion of the HD TV signal to non-HD TV standard channels.
Right.
And so what Mrs. Malul secured from Verizon free HD TV channels to broadcast on. So those are available right now. And
Not yet, not yet.
they're not available?
They will
right
be.
now?
No.
They will be available.
They will be probably this week. We had to wait
Oh.
for some equipment to be delivered.
Yeah. Now, the reason I don't know that is I don't even watch it on TV. I watch it on YouTube. And I know a lot of residents do, and I know a lot of residents don't, but I want to make a pitch for that just briefly. The advantage of watching LHTV on YouTube is the fact that it is streaming constantly in HD, and you have access to the sweeper bar at the bottom so you can go backward and forward. So you can actually watch these meetings, this meeting tomorrow, and move the little slider bar and go back 24 hours and see what's going on here. So that, I don't know that a lot of people know that, but they should, and with more people being computer literate, I think it's something that folks ought to take advantage of. Now, to your question about, the broadcast end of it, when we move, if we were to broadcast out to 2 separate resolutions, the old resolution and the new HD resolution, it would require managing 2 sets of content because there's more real estate on the HD resolution than
Well,
there
I'm
is on
fine
the old.
watching it in HD, but I can't. So you're saying I will be able to soon?
Yeah.
If you have
Okay.
Verizon. Do you have Comcast or Verizon?
I have Verizon.
I think you'll be, I think
so
you'll be
that
really
will be-
happy with it when you see it.
Well, do we know what the numbers are?
Yeah, I announced them a few weeks ago. I think it's, what is it, 37 now? So I think it's
Yes.
537? I'll let you know for sure, but I believe that's what
So
it is.
when we anticipate that happening?
Probably sometime this week, if not early next week. As soon as the guy from Verizon can get here and hook up the cables that we just got.
Okay. My second question is, I really think it's very, very important for us to start broadcasting other events in town. All the other all the other towns on Verizon do. I mean, they'll be able to watch Bernardsville's graduation and Franklin's graduation, but not ours, our high school graduation. So will this new contract absolutely assure us that we are going to be able to see school concerts and sporting events and graduations and town activities? One that came to mind is, it's a wonderful event, very touching, very moving at the Shrine on 9/11. That's the sort of thing that should be on our TV station.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
if
or
I
is
can
this
add- I
going
can-
to,
yeah,
is
let me-
this contract going to make these things start to happen?
To a large degree, yes. Now, there's going to be limits to that. When you get into we've got a lot of ideas, and, you brought your ideas forward, and that was part of the impetus behind what Nancy pursued with this company, DNS. Because inside the contract, there is commitment to do a certain number of events per year for them to produce them. Now, can it be all those events? There's other complicating factors when you get into taking pictures of children playing Little League, or at the schools, you get into, legal problems about release forms and stuff like that. But Halloween parade, perhaps, right? The 9/11 thing at the Shrine, right? Memorial Day parade, and on and on. How many events were committed in that?
10,
10.
up to 10.
10, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So
The high
that's a good
school,
thing.
there's no necessary for the program. Everything there is filmed. It's just a matter of, and they're quite willing to provide those.
Yeah.
Just a matter of broadcasting them. They're there, they're filmed.
I mean, and we've talked about that. Well, absolutely. Look at that. It's a matter of getting a process in place that's repeatable. And, we want to take baby steps with this and get it right as we move forward. But, to your point, I think we want to move this in the direction that you've been helping guide us on.
Thank you. I'm also concerned about,
And also, too, I think you noticed, you and some others had comments about the local newspaper. And, that was not without significant effort to make sure we could get the right technical interface to the Echo Sentinel. So their news is now on there.
Yes, as compared
as opposed
to
to the Daily Record, which is
what
not a
was
local
happening in
newspaper.
Rockaway, New Jersey.
Right.
There,
Right,
which was
yeah.
rather funny. I was, I'm concerned also about an example would be, in the past, if a summer concert was postponed by rain, would tell the person who was taking care of the radio station, someone would, Lisa, I guess, we get in touch with them, and it would be there it would be
Currency of
3 o'clock in the
information, yeah.
afternoon,
Yeah.
and it would say concerts canceled, or not canceled, postponed till tomorrow night or Monday night or whenever it was. So my question would be, if these people are remote, how accessible are they going to be? Will that sort of service be available? That was what I probably used the most on the TV. I would got quite used to just turning it on and seeing what was going to happen, when it was happening, when something was canceled, when something even later that evening, the parade starts at 9 o'clock. I'd put the TV on to see what time it started. All of those sorts of things for
Yeah, the ability
lazy
to
old
do-
me was.
Yeah, the ability to modify the programming, I believe that's in it. I would guess that we're going to have to work out the workflows with them to make sure that it runs smoothly. There's
I
always.
mean, are they there 24 hours a day or 7 days a week? Are they a 40-hour-a-week organization?
Nancy, what was the hours of availability?
Well, there aren't really hours. I mean, it was always remote for after hours, so it would really operate the same way it did before. So, we don't have people here on weekends or at night.
No, but we did before this new set. We didn't have people here, but everyone had the number of the person to call, and things just got put up there.
It's a little bit different because a lot of this stuff now is just managed remotely. So that's the intent.
the question, is it?
Yeah, the intent is to get the updates on there as soon as possible, because we're totally on board with you. People need to know the changes to the events and stuff like that, so that stuff streams out. So, you know, as we onboard this new service provider, you know, just bear with us to work out the workflows and give us a chance to get it right. But
We don't really have a choice.
we don't really have a choice, right?
Choice. But back to I'm going to go full circle, back to my first question. These are the type of things that would be really helpful if we could talk about before you voted. I mean, I know we used to. We would have open to the public before. They were, any item on the agenda, the high school does it that way. You can come forward and speak to anything on the agenda before it's voted on, and then you have a second open session that's for anything you want to talk about.
So Jack, how would that work? Would we do it at consent, or where we would say any comment from the public or question?
You could have a public session at any point in your agenda you choose.
Thank you, Carol. It's been a while. Was I on the
I
committee when we
know,
used to
and
do
I
that?
hate to tell you when, I don't even remember when, because,
It's been a long
you know,
time.
it's been so long.
Is it,
Thank you.
have you
Have
ever
a
not,
good
Thank
evening.
you.
Happy,
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
have you ever
Merry
not,
Christmas to you as well, Carol.
have you ever not been on a committee?
Thank you. Scott, I don't know if I was going to call you Jake. Jake from State Farm. Could you reiterate what you had said earlier? I realized we're talking about Verizon if you're watching it on the television, but whether you're Verizon or Comcast or whatever else you may have, Dish TV, if you watch it on YouTube, that doesn't apply, right? Anybody can watch.
Yeah, you can get to the YouTube link on it from our website, and you can watch it in a browser. You can go back and forth, rewind. You can watch these meetings whenever you want. And if you have a smart TV with a YouTube app on it, you can even watch it on your big screen TV, and it's wonderful. That's the way I do it. I leave it running at work.
Your boss doesn't know, right?
My boss does not know.
You relive these meetings?
I do.
All right.
I
Mr.
do it to look
Rankowitz
for your
doesn't need any
Technicolor,
introduction.
your Technicolor
But if you don't mind,
outfits.
for the record,
No
could you
problem.
state your name and where your address, please.
Good evening. Charles Arenowitz, Millington. Number of topics tonight. Probably the first one's most important. Most of this committee has been responsible for the new building heights in this town. Based on the discussions of the planning board, we're going to have buildings, forget the calculation, but taking it from ground to tip of the building to 59 feet plus. On some of the slopes on the Tifa property, maybe higher. The burden of whether it be 1.3 or 1.4 that you're going to place on the taxpayers, I would encourage you and recommend to you that you work with these developers and work with the fire department to get a donation from these developers for what we've created here. One local town got a serious donation for their firehouse and some of their fire trucks. I don't think we need that extension. I don't think Brendan needs a new firehouse. But I think it'd be beneficial that you talk and solicit donations from these developers. They're going to reap the heights of these 59-foot buildings and so forth. And you can work with the administration or the leaders of that department to lessen the burden on us taxpayers.
Chuck, can I just comment in one respect? Regardless of any new development, the ladder truck was 30 years old, so it was going to be replaced anyway.
At 109 feet?
What, I'm sorry?
At 109 feet?
Yeah, it would have been. We were looking at least a 100-foot ladder because of some of the setbacks with the homes in town.
And to your second point, Jack, I know we've talked about this in the past. I don't know what's happened years ago, but I think there is a law in place now. You cannot solicit donations, or I don't know how to phrase it.
Well, you can, but these are all Mount Laurel developments that we're talking about.
We have no leverage.
So we have no leverage.
The other place, you're probably talking about Watchung. They wanted to put something down there, so they worked out a deal. You can't condition an approval on a donation.
I didn't say conditional approval.
But we have no leverage to do that anyway.
But Chuck, I can
If,
tell you.
all these developers want to work with us, okay? Well, if they want to work with us, this would give some indication of how well they want to work with us. You guys are experienced business people. I'm sure you can work your laurels on these people to help us out.
Chuck, your point's well taken, and just to let you know
Thank you.
that the developer, or at least one developer where I've been in their presence, has actually been asked to do, if they're willing to help us, and they point blank said absolutely not. So it has been that course of action has been followed.
Well, I
That said, we
think,
could keep it on the radar and move to point.
one rejection doesn't mean you stop, okay?
Keep it on the radar.
Yeah. All right, next topic. Tonight's agenda and executive session, we're going to talk about the contract for the land acquisition. Land acquisition has been on your agenda for the last 4 or 5 months, and we as taxpayers have no idea where you're committing dollars to. This reminds me of what went on with affordable housing. We had no input. We were told where it was going to be, and it's Mount Laurel, you don't need any input. We're going to tell you where it's going to be. So when you feel it's appropriate, when you're spending our money, we'd like to know where you're spending it. You can make all the legal excuses you want, but someday we're going to need to know, because we're paying for it.
Chuck, I'm not ignoring you. I just want to ask Jack a question. To answer your question, I would love to discuss land acquisition, but on the advice of counsel.
Yeah, I fully understand. You can spend our money wherever you want and tell us when it's all done. You know, I come here prepared. I printed the agenda before I left my house so I'd get the most current version. Walked in, grabbed it. I'm going to be current tonight. Thanks to the efforts, I've got my iPad current. I just looked up the agenda. I'm still looking for resolution 21-314.
They were added on tonight's agenda
Well,
on the fly. The agenda that's on the website is knowledge at that point in time, and these were put on this afternoon.
so I walk in tonight, I'll repeat it. I walk in tonight, grab the agenda at 7:25. I said, geez, maybe they couldn't print it. So I went to the website at my seat. It's still not there. We have to do a better job communicating with the taxpayers. This is not the first time I'm looking for resolutions that I can't find. This has got to stop. I still don't know what it is. I'd like to read it. I don't think that's being unreasonable. Do you?
Well,
Anybody want to respond to that?
the only thing, and Megan's more of an expert in this area, but I don't think it's unusual for any town to add, an item the day of a meeting if it's considered timely, that it needs to be voted on. So I mean, I do agree it would have been nice if I read it, but I don't think what was done is unusual.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make a point, there's some towns that don't even put the draft resolutions on meeting agendas. So the draft resolutions that are added to this are a draft of what could be adopted tonight. It's not final. The meeting minutes will be the final say of what occurred at the meeting.
Well, if this was decided this afternoon, whatever time that was. It's 7:30 tonight. You can't update the website? Come on. You've got a better explanation than that, don't you?
Well, I think Megan answered the question.
Well, that's
There
what
are
I
some
was
towns that
hoping.
don't-
I was
don't-
hoping the committee would give me an explanation better than 6 hours. I could have been to Washington D.C. and I could have been in Richmond, right? You guys like Richmond, right?
That's right. Well, it depends on what road you take and what time of day.
Right.
I've done that drive many times.
And well, you take the special lanes for the pay the extra money, right?
Or go 81, go west and then hang a left.
Last item, similar to the first. For all these capital expenditures we're going to be making and we have made, do we not have a capital reserve for such items that we've been waiting 30 years for a fire truck? Do we have a capital reserve for big equipment, big ticket items in this town?
We have a reserve, and I'll be blunt about this point. Until the sewer system was sold and we retired all debt, there was no foreseeable possibility of buying that ladder truck.
I'm not saying buying it. What I'm saying to you is, as a financial guy, as you are, and your background, shouldn't we have a capital reserve for big ticket items in this town?
Well, we have a 6-year capital plan for all departments. The Millington Fire Company will submit a 6-year capital plan, so we plan for those expenditures, and the township does in fact have a reserve. And anybody who listened to a couple of meetings back, when our auditor came in, Nisifaccia, Ray Serenelli Jr., explained relative to other towns that they monitor, Longville Township is in very good financial shape.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just asking for big ticket items. I think the answer is no. We don't have a capital reserve for big ticket items. In closing, if we got rejected once for a donation to our ladder truck, let's go another time, a different approach. I think these developers should donate to what they're getting from us. We're a team, right? We want development, we want to provide service, and I think we got to go at them again. Thank you all for your time, and hopefully the next couple meetings I don't have to look for resolutions that aren't there. Thank you again.
Thank you, Chuck.
Merry Christmas.
I think Chuck was volunteering to use his wily ways to get us that donation.
Katie Crichton, I'm back. I have to say, I have sat here this evening and I have watched the atrocious behavior of this committee laughing at, mocking, and patronizing every single resident who has stood up here and cares enough to say something. I think you've forgotten that you were elected to serve the people of this township. And I think you should stop caring about having fun back there and worrying about what other townships do and don't put on their agenda items. And you should start caring about the people who have elected you. Because if you don't, you're not going to get elected again.
I will respond to that. I don't agree at all with your characterization of what this committee has done. We've been on this committee for a long time. A lot of the residents you said we patronized are in fact friends. So I am insulted by what you just said.
I agree.
And just to reinforce that point, yourself and your sister came forward with comments on an ordinance, and those were not only considered, but they were actually at the point where we were debating whether to change it or not. And I think part of what you came and up and said, we actually decided to, went into why we tabled that ordinance. And so again, there's I join with my colleagues here. I'm that you would come up here and say that. We do spend a lot of time with one another, and we do tend to have a little bit of fun, but it's certainly not at our residents' expense.
Meeting's still open to the public.
Dennis Sandow, Millington. I would like to just remark that I have been patronized, mocked, insulted, and very often ignored for over 20 years at this podium. And I have immunity. I don't even need a mask anymore. So insult me if you want. The reason I've come up here is to talk about fire trucks. If, in fact, a fire truck has a design life of 20 years, and if the town owns 5 trucks, which it does, then I don't need a slide rule to figure out that we should be buying a truck every 4 years and get into an orderly rotation. And for the past 20 years, every time we bought a fire truck, that discussion has taken place. That discussion has taken place. We ought to have a schedule. Now, you talk about a 6-year capital plan, that's fine. But we're talking about a fire truck for delivery in 2023. The last time we got a fire truck was 2006. That's 17 years gap. Obviously, that's not an orderly rotation. And in fact, that means that the other 4 trucks that we have are going to come up within the next 5 or so years on their 20th anniversary. 2 of the trucks are more than 20 years old already, in addition to the ladder truck, and the other 2 will be 20 years old within 5 years. And it doesn't seem like a wild stretch to figure out that if you buy a truck every 4 years, you've got an early rotation going. And if you wait 17 years between purchases, you're obviously going to have a crunch. And for the next 5 years, there's going to be arguments about, well, can we really afford to replace the foam truck? Can we really afford to replace the rescue truck? Well, you're going to have to. And so I don't understand what this 6-year capital program is all about. My guess is that for the past 17 years, the ladder truck has appeared on the 6-year program each year, probably in the 6th year. And it just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And I just cannot accept the fact that until we sold the sewer plant, we couldn't afford the fire truck. Well, we can't afford not to replace it. And if it means that we have to go to the bond market in these days, that's not so hard to do. Now, okay, we've got the money, we're debt-free. But what are we going to do? Are we going to talk about replacing the foam truck next year and push that off for another 5 years or 10 years?
First off, let me say, I think what you're making a very valid point, as did Chuck.
I've made that point every time for the past 20 years.
And I'll a little bit walk down memory lane. When I was first elected, which was November of '09 and sworn in 10, this town had nearly $20 million in debt. $20 million in debt. Today it has none. And it's not just because we sold the sewer system, which was $12.7 million, because embedded in the sewer system was another $4 million or so of borrowed money. So basically, this committee inherited $24 million in debt. We are now debt-free. That's a way to
yes,
get
but that
to your
money.
Point. Now, let me get to your point. We are now in a position to do exactly what Chuck has recommended and what you are also recommending. We should, and I was looking at former chief of the Sterling Fire Company, and he was agreeing with every point you made.
Who do you think is pulling my strings?
Wait a minute, is everyone out there laughing at my expense? So the point is, I agree with you, I agree with what Chuck said, and I think it's important that this committee, going into next year, start looking at putting money aside with a plan to fund that 6-year capital plan that I referenced.
But sir, it is disingenuous of you to talk about the $20 million worth of debt in 2009. Why did we have that debt? Because we were paying off Town Hall, which until 2003 was in a building that was a 150-year-old schoolhouse. We were paying off a new library because the old library didn't have any parking spaces, was half the size it should have been, and was already 60 years old. We were paying off a park, which we desperately needed because we didn't have enough field there. All that stuff had been bonded prior to your looking at it and taking a snapshot in 2009. The fact that you paid it off is great because they were 20-year bonds and they all would have been paid off by now anyway. So it's a dynamic process, as you well know.
Yes.
But you've got to actually plan for it. And the planning on fire truck replacements has been abysmal.
I'm not even gonna, I actually saw it. Was that an applause? And I wasn't even looking at you when you did it. I agree, but you know, as the saying is, even God cannot change the past. We can
Everybody who has a car accident in town should be forced to pay into the fund to replace the rescue truck. It's not only the guys who build the apartment houses who have to pay. Everybody who calls out the rescue truck ought to be forced to pay.
I don't know if I agree with that.
The other issue, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've surfaced this before whenever it comes to allocating money for emergency service vehicles, where we can do it, but the next township committee may very well decide to look at a pot of money and say, you know what, we need this for something else, and they'll take that money and they'll go ahead and do it. And so I know I've discussed with Jack various ways of trying to ring fence that money, and we just don't have it. And so that's the other issue that's with your idea, Dennis. It's a great idea. It's one that I certainly endorse, but you open yourself up to the vagaries of time and new committees.
Thank you for your time. I'll leave it to you to adjourn.
Thanks, Dennis.
Tom Groscuff, Gillette. Good evening. I'm going to end it on a happier note. The Myersville tree lighting was wonderful. 18-year resident, first time I went, had a great time. It reminded me of European markets and how people can congregate, and there was food over here, and there were the pretzels over there, and the corral from the high school, and the fireworks, fantastic. Thank you, Garden State Fireworks. I don't know where it could be brought up, whether it's the Recreation Department, the Central Park Committee. I don't know if they meet in public or if they meet wherever they can. But I'd like to make a suggestion about the Central Park. I know it's large enough for one field, one sport field. I was hoping that the sport field equipment would be movable so that perhaps we could have in the spring, you could have an arts and crafts festival. People could come around. Maybe in the summer, you could have a festival where the different restaurants and bakeries in town could give samples of their wares. Maybe we could do a Christmas festival there.
Or like a farmer's market or something.
A farmer's market, yeah, you could do that. We could do that, weekends and whenever. All of these items are things that we could possibly really use. And just think about the traffic Valley Road has. Parking's available around. There's parking right out front. I would just hope that would be brought into consideration before a final vote is made. And I would hope, as Ms. Plaza said, that we could discuss it in open forum of what the final resolution will be on Central Park. I'm sure that the committees are working on it now. I'm sure they have great ideas. I'm asking, please put it out there because
I
let us
will say,
share
I think that's a
time.
great suggestion, but full transparency, I don't think anybody here has really had any deep conversations about Central Park.
No, no.
I'm sure we will going into next year. And what I heard you say is you volunteered to help with the planning of what may go across the street.
Let me think about that. I'll get back to you.
Tom's learned.
And I do have one question for you, Nancy. You said that Verizon will be carrying the HDTV versions
Yes, Comcast doesn't have the ability to do it.
at all.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
Go to
Yeah.
YouTube.
could be done. And all my TVs are smart, so
You have a smart TV?
yeah, I'm not, but the TV is.
TV, so that's even better. So you just load the smart app for YouTube on your TV, boom.
Okay, great. Right.
And Tom, one of your suggestions, which I, vehemently opposed, you said we should have put chocolate on some of those pretzels, because that's what they did back in Munich or I don't know where, but I don't know if I like that idea.
They have all different kinds. There's chocolate covered, there's sesame, there's salted, there's delicious. Oh, don't get me started. But, I'm a salted fan myself. Thank you all, and if I don't see you all, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Back at you, Tom, I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Tom.
Thank you.
Meeting's still open to the public.
Mayor, if I could open it up to anybody on Zoom, if you would like to raise your hand to make a public comment, you can do so now. I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. So before we make a motion to adjourn, I want to wish everyone a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Merry New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and thank you for attending. I know it's a late time, so I appreciate everybody staying. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I forgot. I was looking at Megan. Megan, what's the delay? Aye. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dennis brought his own, he brought gifts, he brought computers.
I have a trick question for you guys.
Mayor, you turned
I'm
off
sorry to
the-
correct.